This is the I Don't Want a Divorce podcast with Dr. David Clarke. That's me. Episode number 15. Here we're going to talk about why men don't talk, one of the universal questions for the ages. Women have always wanted to know. Men, frankly, don't care, but you may be curious, some of you anyway, and I'm going to explain this, because if the man doesn't end up talking, you're not going to have much of a marriage, not much of a relationship. Now, first, I'm going to answer just a couple of questions we've gotten from podcast listeners, and we love to get these questions. We can zero in on specific things you're struggling with. I always have an answer. We hope it's a good answer, but here's a question. My husband and I recently started therapy with a Christian counselor in our area. Well, that's good news. He is a big advocate of temperament therapy. So he wants to know, what is your opinion of temperament/personalities? You know, the phlegmatic, the melancholy, the choleric, the sanguine, and how that plays a role in marriage, compatibility, and communication style. Well, my response to that is, I don't do temperament therapy myself. It's not my thing, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with it. It makes a lot of sense. I've read articles and books on it. So that's probably going to be fine. It's looking at and understanding differences, and this is always helpful because men and women have so many differences and personality differences, which is what this man's going for. It does make a lot of sense. So I think that's a fine framework. As long as your therapist has a clear plan of action, it almost doesn't matter how he approaches things, as long as it's biblically based and proven. That's what I'd say to that. If you see a counselor and you're sitting down there and he doesn't seem to know where he's going, or she doesn't know where she's going, and well, what happened this week? And it's and you're driving the process, find another therapist. You need to have somebody with a clear plan of action. I always have a plan. I've developed it, of course, over 33 years, but all my books are plans, strategies that I know work. Here's another question, a good one, kind of a deeper one. The question is, the comment question, I'm currently working on making amends to those I've harmed and extending forgiveness to those who've hurt me. Well, that's very good. This is a phase of Celebrate Recovery. Very good. And so she's involved in that process. Or he. The question is this, my spouse adamantly opposes counseling, talking, or working on the marriage. Well, I've heard that a million times in my career. How do you recommend taking a stand and forcing the issues? The spouse says, oh, here's a big surprise. What a shocker. My spouse says that I'm the problem. Yeah, I'll bet. You know what? It's time for tough love. This person's going to live years and years. They may not divorce you, but they'll live the rest of their life and the rest of your marriage this way. And that actually ends up being abusive and damaging and dishonoring to God. It's sin. So I would recommend, again, getting back to my book, it's a 1-2 step. I would start with, I don't love you anymore, because this person doesn't love you. A spouse that takes this kind of a stand doesn't love you. They can say it. All you can go on is actions, and their actions say, I don't care about you. I care about me. So Matthew 18, 15 through 17 is what I base that book on. I don't love you anymore. This is serious sin. A person doesn't have to be having an affair or involved in some outrageous sin of abuse. But you know what? This kind of I'm shutting you out, I'm not talking to you, I'm not working on our marriage, I don't care if you're upset, is abusive. So if they don't respond to the initial steps of Matthew 18, or the steps in Matthew 18, and you go through the Don't Love You program, okay, now you know you've got an abuser on your hands. Dyed in the wool, no question about it. And that's when you will go to my book, Enough is Enough, How to Leave an Abusive Relationship, which, by the way, we're getting more and more downloads of the ebook. Many will buy the Enough is Enough book for abusive relationships, and we have a number of podcasts on that. I began my podcast career with that book. Many will buy the print version, which is fine, but more and more are buying the ebook version because it's easy to get, there's no postage, it's private, it's secret, which, of course, is part of the program. So that's what I'd say in that situation. I'm a much more aggressive than most therapists. You don't keep loving on this person and meeting needs. Waste of time. That will only enable them to continue being a dirtball. And frankly, you're living with a dirtball. So let's do some tough love and see if we can change that scenario. Now let's get back to the podcast topic. It's an important one, and that is why men don't talk. And I'm talking to the ladies here, even though men, of course, you're listening to, and this may help you. I think it will, because you have to talk or you'll never meet your ladies' needs. Ma'am, I have to tell you something about your man. It's something you probably suspected for years but couldn't prove. Even though this news will be distressing, deep down you've known it all along. He'll deny it, but I guarantee it's the truth, and it will explain a lot about him and about your relationship. So sit down and get a strong grip on the armrest. Your man is a CIA agent. The job, in quotes, he goes to every day is a front, a sham, a cover for his clandestine activities. You know I'm right. The evidence, once you step back and look at it, is overwhelming. The man keeps secrets. He doesn't tell you much about himself, does he? You are on a need-to-know basis, and apparently you don't need to know much. He doesn't talk about his job. He doesn't talk about his thoughts. He doesn't talk about his feelings. He doesn't talk about much of anything, does he? When you work with a company, these are all matters of national security. Did you ever wonder why he is such a master at avoiding your attempts to get him to open up and share himself with you? Well, now you know why. He's been trained by his CIA handlers to withstand brutal interrogations and keep his secrets inside. So when you are interrogating, I mean asking him to talk personally, he clams up tight and reveals nothing. All right, he doesn't work for the CIA. It just seems that way. But there are 3 central reasons why your man doesn't share his secrets, his personal inside self, with you. And the first reason is simple. He's a man. And men are genetically engineered to avoid personal sharing with a woman or anyone else. He wants to be in control, and personal sharing makes him feel out of control. He wants to project the image of a strong, capable man, and opening up makes him feel weak and vulnerable. He is more logical and analytical than emotional. He sees the world through his logical lens and doesn't think emotions are helpful in coping with life and solving problems. He also knows he's not good at this whole touchy-feely intimacy thing. And your basic man figures, if I'm not good at it, why try? She's much better at it than I am, so let her talk. He wants to feel competent at tasks, and he feels incompetent in this realm of sharing personal thoughts and feelings. He believes he won't do well and that you'll be disappointed in him. The second reason is that he's imitating the male role models in his life. This is true for most of us as men. Additionally, he never seen another significant man in his life ever share something personal. Dad didn't do it. Stepdad didn't do it. Neither grandfather did it. Uncles, teachers, coaches, bosses. None of these influential men shared in a personal way in his presence. What he did see these men do over and over and over and over again was stuff their emotions, act tough, and deal only in facts and logic. When they did talk, it was about sports and cars and politics and fixing things, guy stuff. Is it any wonder he doesn't share personal thoughts and feelings with you? He was taught by other men, by example, over and over again to clam up and keep his personal information to himself. Now, of course, when you were dating him, it didn't seem that way. Infatuation opens his mouth, and he was actually what seemed like sharing personal things. That stops after marriage. He reverts back to being a man. Third reason, and I think very significant, is a woman burned him. This is often the case with the men I work with in my office who are losing their wives on the point of losing their marriage because they can't open up and talk. At least one woman in his past hurt him deeply. He loved her, he was close to her, and she traumatized him. It could have been his mother, it could have been a stepmother, it could have been a grandmother, it could have been a sister, it could have been a teacher, it could have been an old girlfriend or an ex-wife. That trauma caused him to put up thick walls around his heart, and he's not lowering them. He won't take the chance that you'll hurt him in the same way. The crazy thing is, I almost can guarantee you, ladies, unless he's an abuser, he loves you. He does. He would give his life for you. He works hard. He takes care of the kids. He meets your needs in some ways, but he just doesn't open up because he doesn't know how. These are some of the reasons. Okay, I'm talking to the men now. And ladies, if you're listening, you can have him listen to this podcast. I think it'll help him. All right, Mr. Clam, and I'm calling you a clam because men are clams and women are crowbars. Think about that for a minute. I cover this in my book, Honey, We Need to Talk. All right, Mr. Clam, I'm going to make this short and simple and clear. I'm a blunt person, and here's the blunt truth. By not opening up and sharing personally on a regular basis with your woman, you are breaking her heart. She won't, in fact, she can't feel loved by you if you don't reveal what's going on in your heart and mind. I have never heard a woman in 33 years of clinical work with couples and individual work with ladies, ever say to me, you know what, Dave? My husband never talks. He doesn't share. He doesn't open up personally. We don't have deep conversations, but I am more in love with him every day. I don't think so. It's just the opposite. She's dying inside. Knowing he loves you doesn't help if he's not going to reveal who he is. You married him to find out who he is. She wants to know you, Mr. Clam. She wants to share your life. She wants to help you deal with your stresses and your worries. That's sharing life with you. She wants to know what you think and feel. She wants to be close to you, closer than anyone else. In fact, these are not just wants. They are her deep needs in your relationship. This is not an option for a woman. She has to have it, or she will not feel loved and cherished. When you learn how to share regularly with her on a personal level, you'll both experience the benefits. And here is the list of benefits for both of you. She'll feel loved. Boom, and that's important. She'll love and respect you, and respect for men is critically important. She'll be drawn, listen to this, men, she'll be drawn to you physically, and your sex life will be greatly improved. Well, that should get your attention. But don't stop reading here. There are 3 more benefits. In fact, speaking of sex, I've had so many men in my office, married men, of course, and they'll say, Dave, and they're as serious as a heart attack. My wife doesn't seem to be interested in sex. She'll do it. It's like a duty. It's like clicking off a list, feed the dog, empty the trash, have sex with Bob, but she's not into it. I say, I'll tell you why she's not into it. Bob, whatever your name is, Mike, Steve, Dave, could be Dave, Phil, is because you're not sharing yourself with her personally. Without that emotional connection, Bob, she cannot feel close to you physically. She'll do her duty, but that's not much fun for each of you, for both of you, of course. Here's the other benefits of opening up and sharing, men. She'll be happy, and having a happy wife makes you happy. You've heard the old thing, happy wife, happy life. It's true. Get this, man, you'll be healthier physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When you cram everything inside and you stuff your feelings and you stuff personal things and nobody knows you and your wife doesn't know you, it harms you. You die earlier than you should. You are jammed up emotionally. You'll be depressed. You'll feel anxious. And you'll be also separated from God. Last benefit, you'll be blessed by God for meeting some of your wife's deepest needs. Now, I want you to have a conversation. If you're listening to this podcast, have a conversation as a couple. Certainly if you're dating, engaged, living together even, certainly if you're married, have a conversation about this very topic. And men, you can discuss if these reasons make sense. Yeah, Dave's got a point there. That's why I don't share up. That's why I don't share. If we can identify why you don't share, and it's not because you don't love her, that is the beginning of the process of change. And the woman can have input and share her heart and how she'd like to see you begin to share with her. All this is important. Again, I recommend my book, Honey, We Need to Talk. It's a great resource. You go through it together. It's very interactive, short chapters. It will literally teach you how to communicate, how to get to a deeper level. Most books deal in theory. I deal in what works, and this is very practical. You'll find it on my website, along with all the other services I have, phone advice, email advice. Of course, the podcasts are on there. Marriage intensives that I do, 2 and 3 day marriage intensives here in Tampa, my therapy office here in Tampa. David E. Clarke, Clarke with an E on the end of it, David E. Clarke, PhD.com. Now, on the next podcast, I'm going to teach men how to share personally, what topics you can begin to learn how to share, opening up. So stay tuned for that.